Well, welcome back for the last little selection for Area Study 1. We're looking at the functioning systems. So we talked, well, let's see. Let's talk about a few things. We talked about cells earlier, and of course a large organism is made of many cells. So let's look at the requirements for life, what makes something living, systems of tissues and organs and body systems. Also we need to think about vascular plants and the mammalian systems, because you need to study one in detail. I'll just go through a few, the core ones, quickly. So, what's life? Well, we tend to agree that there are 7 characteristics that separate the living from the non-living. So, the ability to move, we don't mean necessarily getting up and walking away, but the ability for cells and tissues to move for the sake of the organism. So plants can move, not quite in the way an animal does. The ability to exchange gas, so it's important to take, say, oxygen in and carbon dioxide out in the case of humans. The ability to grow and to reproduce ourselves. The ability to gain water. The ability to gain energy and nutrients. To remove wastes. And to be able to sense and respond to our internal and external environments. You recognise those as really the things about cells, aren't they? You don't necessarily have to hit all 7 to be considered life, but you need to hit most of them. And clearly viruses are one of those things that don't quite fit the bill. They can't reproduce themselves, so they tend to get considered to be not living for that very reason. Anyway, viruses for another day. So, how do we go about achieving all these requirements? It's pretty simple if you're single-celled or a handful of cells, because you're sort of swimming around in water and everything you need's there, and you can dump your waste into that water as well. But once we become more complex, like mammals like us, then we start to develop specialised cells and specialised tissues and organs that do this work for us. So a tissue is simply a clump of cells of the same type. There are many cell types in our body, but you think of things like blood tissue and so blood cells. The epithelial tissue that makes up our skin, they all are the same cell type, and they're working together to perform a particular task. Often they'll have a specialised function. So look at the structure here of this little nerve cell that's been drawn for us. Quite separate projections, quite a different looking cell to these connective tissues that can stretch. You don't really get it's a horrible picture of muscle tissue. It's trying to show that striations in muscle tissue that allows them to stretch and bend and retract. Tissues then can form organs. So we look at our heart tissue here, our heart here. We've got muscle tissue that makes up the ventricles and atria, but there's blood tissue as well to feed that heart, and blood tissue coming in and out it's connective tissue coming in and out to take blood in or take blood out, away to other places. There's all sorts of different tissues involved, but they're all working together so the heart performs its duties. And then, of course, you put all those things together. So you've got a system here. We've got the digestive system of mammal, a whole range of organs and tissues that start in the mouth, transfer the food into the gut, pull that food apart so we get the good stuff out, and it goes off to the liver and other places, and we dump the excess food out the back. So that donut that runs through us all the way through and then out. So these are ways of organising tissues. I'm going a little bit fast, we've got quite a bit to do, sorry about that. So, water. Water is required by all living things, and organisms need between 60 and 80% of water, so they contain that sort of much amount of water. So water is critical, probably because all life started in water in the first place, but also because, of course, that water allows for substances to diffuse and move into and out of cells, into and out of bodies. And it's a limiting factor on all things, but particularly plants, who simply can't pull up their roots and go find another place. They have to stick with what they've got. We can always go and find water if we can. Plants are stuck with whatever's falling out of the sky and is available to them in the soil or the subsoil. So, one thing we need to look at in particular is the way plants go about solving their problems. So clearly, water for them is absorbed through the soil. So they have roots, big strong root systems, that at the ends of each have these wonderful little root hairs. And root hairs create a greater surface area for the root. and take up water and the nutrients, that the minerals and things that are in the soil that can be dissolved into water. They can also move across into these root hairs. Oops, there we are. Into these root hairs and travel up the root system. Now they enter a tube called a xylem, which we'll get to talk about soon. And the xylem starts down here and goes all the way out to the leaf tissue. So water moves by a process called transpiration from the soil into the roots and then up the plant and out the leaf. This allows for movement of minerals and things through this structure. So very, very useful. From the roots, we go into the shoots of the plant. And so there's a little cross-section of a shoot. And we've got these xylem tissues. They're like big straws. And also phloem. And phloem allows for movement in multiple directions. Backwards and forwards in the tube itself, but throughout the plant. And then we've got some packing tissue, this sclerenchyma around it, packing all that in together to protect it. And these are critical, particularly the xylem, because that allows water to enter the plant. But also the phloem is pretty important because it allows for movement of material that plant cells make to get to other cells, so hormones and things, proteins, sugars. Of course, plants don't have a pump. They haven't got a heart like us, so they need these tubes to operate. Well, in the case of phloem, it's just active transport, greatly in movement by diffusion through the material in the cells. And with these, it relies on the energy pulling water up the system, all the way to the top of 100-metre trees. Pretty phenomenal when we think about it. So the xylem is just a tube. It's a straw. It's dead tissue. It's quite thick. As you see, it's stiffened with lignin, a product that cells make, that actually strengthens this and stiffens it, and the water simply travels up. Water adheres. There's a whole lot of reasons that water can do this. They adhere well to each other, to social cohesion between molecules, but also adhere to the surface. Oops, where's my thing on? Adhere to the surface, and they're being pulled up by the sun's energy being applied to the leaf. In the case of a phloem tissue, and here I am in the way again, sorry about that, we have these little sieve bits between each cell, and these cells are alive still. And unfortunately, this diagram hasn't got one, but they're also companion cells, all the cell organelles that the cell needs. So movement in here is two-directional. It relies a lot on diffusion, but it also uses active transport, use energy to move things through those cells. So obviously, huge amounts of energy, you'd expect lots of mitochondria. And then, of course, we arrive at the leaf. And the leaf has a couple of functions. Obviously, we're going to find lots of green tissue in the leaf, because this is where photosynthesis is taking place in great quantity, so all that green pigment is chlorophyll. We also find these holes, particularly on the undersurface of native plants, but in many cases you'll find them on both surfaces, which allow water to leave and gases to exchange. So CO2, O2 in and out, and water coming out. That stream of water is really important to a plant, to draw things up from the roots, but also is critically important for exchange of gases. And lots of photosynthesis taking place. So CO2, O2, H2O, all in great need here in this space. We're going to explore these three organs within the plant in great detail through experimentation. So I won't go into too much here, but we will talk more about it in class. I'll try to do a short about stomata first. These stomata here, two guard cells and a hole. There's a pore between them. And the guard cells can, as you see, open, and they can contract and close off. Plants don't like closing the guard cell, but they have to stop water loss if they haven't in low water conditions. Because once you've closed the guard cell, you've also stopped gas exchange. I'll talk more about stomata in class, and we'll go searching for them. Oh, I'm still banging on about plants. I thought I finished. Sorry about that. I just talked about that anyway, haven't I? I covered all that detail. So then we've got some systems in mammals that we need to look at. The course only requires you to look at one in particular, so we're going to look at one in detail. But I'll quickly go through the four and link them back to where they help with the requirements of life for mammals. So we need to do gas exchange, clearly. We need oxygen in for cell respiration, and the carbon dioxide we produce from cell respiration we need out again. And this takes place in our lungs. So we've got a system here where we breathe in through our nose and mouth. That air travels down the trachea into the bronchi, into the bronchioles, and out to these little things here, these alveoli, these sort of little air sacs. And the alveoli are where the air accumulates and is wrapped with blood tissue, and obviously deoxygenated blood comes down here full of carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide moves by diffusion into the alveoli. We've breathed in, so oxygen's now in supply in the alveoli, and that crosses into the blood, and the blood goes back to the heart, having been reoxygenated. It's not a perfect system, it's an inefficient system, but there are thousands, millions of these alveoli in 2 healthy lungs. Now, importantly, they're moist. They've got to be wet because, of course, they rely on diffusion. So your lungs and the internal surface are moist. They need to be for that diffusion to take place, and the membranes are very thin to allow for reasonably rapid diffusion, because we breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. There's not a lot of time between our inhalation and exhalation for diffusion to occur. That's why we breathe so rapidly. And of course, once we put ourselves under the strain, we go for a run or whatever, then we start to breathe a lot heavier. We start panting because we need more of that exchange to occur. So we increase the flow of air rather than a nice, relaxed, not using much energy, don't really need to breathe too much. So we can alter the exchange rate. As part of that respiration, we need to consider the role of red blood cells. So this is a picture here of red blood cells. They're like donuts with a centre filled in with icing, because they don't contain a nucleus. They need to be able to squeeze their way in and to get as close as possible to every cell in your body, right down into your fingertips, into your toes. Every cell needs a red blood cell to come past with oxygen and take the CO2 away. So CO2 and oxygen can basically swap location at the hemoglobin on the surface of our red blood cells. So it can carry both gases. And that exchange again takes place. So we've got this little diagram here of the alveoli putting the CO2 back into the alveoli, CO2 coming out of the cell and going onto the blood. Of course, the O2's come off the blood and gone into the cell, and that sort of cycles around our body constantly. So the red blood cells and the circulation system are critically important as part of our respiration system in getting gases, oxygen, to our cells and carbon dioxide away, that gas exchange. Clearly, we also need to get energy. We're heterotrophs. We need to eat stuff. And so we need a digestive system. And our digestive system is quite complex, many organs and tissues involved. We're after carbohydrates, because that's an immediate source of energy. We can actually burn that to glucose quite quickly and store the excess as glycogen and in time adipose. We need lipids. As we've seen, our cells are wrapped in lipids. So lipids are very important. Some of our hormones and vitamins are also lipid-based. And we can use fats as energy. So fats and oils are lipids. We need proteins, because proteins are huge, so we can't diffuse them across from our gut into our blood system. So again, we break these down to amino acids and then remake those amino acids in the cells as we need them. Vitamins and minerals are also required in different amounts and for different purposes. But again, we extract these from the food we eat and place them into our digestive system. And I realise we're running out of time quite quickly here, aren't I? So we do chemical digestion by adding chemicals to our food, and mechanical, physical digestion by chewing it. Obviously, we do a lot of physical digestion here. We also do physical digestion in the stomach. So the food goes in, we chomp it up, salivary glands add some chemical, moves down to the esophagus to the stomach, churn it around, turn it into chyme, get some other chemicals added from here and the stomach and the pancreas, pop in the small intestine, it goes around the small intestine, we extract as much as we can from it, and then in the large intestine we get what's left and all the water we need, and out the other end goes our leftovers. I'm aware of about around time, so I might pause and set the last little bit up as a second short video.